Get ready to listen, learn, and earn CE hours. This podcast features content from an accredited CE activity provided by Calibri Healthcare. Visit elitelearning.com/podcasts for accreditation and disclosure statements and instructions on how you may be able to earn CE credits.
So the first degree, I wasn't all that focused as a young man, but I'm plodding along and being successful in the program. But when I stepped into that bachelor's degree program for nursing, wow, the breadth and the width of the knowledge that's necessary to have that BSN or that RN on the end of your name really caught me off guard. And then you think you know it all. You've got those letters at the end of your name, and I started working and I realized I had a long ways to go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leanna McGuire, and I will be your host for this Elite Learning podcast series, Second Careers in Nursing. During this episode, we'll have a conversation with Kevin Lee, who's a same-day surgery RN working with pre- and post-op surgical patients in an ambulatory setting. Hello, Kevin.
Hello.
I'm so glad to have you on this podcast. We're really excited to hear about your journey. Before we get started, tell us what your first career was.
Well, it's actually still my additional career. I've been a farmer for 26 years.
Wow.
And prior to starting farming on my own, I worked in other ag business related things for about 8 years.
Wow, that's really interesting. So how long? So you'd been doing that for quite a while before you decided to go into nursing, obviously, from what you just said.
Yeah, I pretty well knew when I started farming on my own that I was headed the nursing direction. It was just a long trajectory.
Yeah. That's great. And what made you consider nursing? Was it something you always wanted to do, or was there something that precipitated that decision?
Yeah, a couple of things, actually. I had planned on always having something along with the farming. That's just the reality of being a grain-only farmer, no livestock. So I have a fair amount of, at least half of the year, I have a fair amount of free time. Also, being self-employed, there's no benefits, health insurance, and those kind of things that comes along with it. So it's nice to have that provided from a second or parallel job.
Yeah.
So I knew I would need something, but I was an acquaintance of mine. One day I had expressed that I really, at that time, was planning on getting an advanced degree in agronomy, and or something I didn't know. And she said, "Well, perhaps you want to consider nursing." And I'm sure I laughed, because that was not on my radar at all. It was so far from what I was doing. But that seed that got planted in that small conversation like that, it was always in the back of my mind. And the more I looked at it, I realized there was a lot of flexibility in the way nurses work and the scheduling and those kinds of things. But probably more important than it was just a practical fit into my life was the notion I was kind of going through some self-discovery in life and figuring out what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And it became clear to me that I was a helper. So when I realized that about myself, it made it easier to go this strange route for a farmer to go to nursing school and go down that path.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's not two things that I hear together frequently, but I can see how it would work really well with the farming, as far as the scheduling piece as well. So
usually, yes.
So it ended up checking a lot of boxes.
It does, yes.
Yeah, that's great. And why did you choose same-day surgery, or was that basically because of that scheduling piece?
So surgical nursing in general chose me rather than me choosing it. To be honest, when I finished up with my bachelor's degree, I really had a strong bent towards going into mental health nursing. At the time, it was actually my mental health instructor in school said, Kevin, you're going to get mental health nursing no matter where you go and no matter what you do. She suggested, maybe just try something a little more middle of the road and go from there. And so I started looking for something that was more of just a acute care, medical floor, or whatever. I had been working at the hospital. I've been at the same facility my entire CNA career and nursing career. I've never left there. But I had an idea what unit I wanted to work through, a unit that had a great manager that I knew would lead me well. But she couldn't offer me a day job. And I was committed to saying, I'm too old to work nights. I'm not making that switch at this point in my life. And so I started looking elsewhere in the hospital. And lo and behold, the surgical floor had a daytime opening. It was a part-time gig, which was it was exactly what I was looking for. I'm like, okay, I guess surgery is what it's going to be.
That's great. Are there other areas? Go ahead. You were going to say.
I was just going to say, so I spent about 3 years working in that setting and really liked what I did. I liked that patient population. And I was gaining a skill set that then led me to where I am now.
That's fantastic. Are there other areas in nursing you'd like to explore at some point, or even go back to mental health nursing? Pretty content with how it's all working with your farming schedule?
I really like what I do. I like the end of things. And at this point in my life, I don't know how many years more of nursing I have. But I'm content to stay in the lane that I'm in. And I'm getting to the point now where I can kind of give some leadership, especially on the post-op side, as we bring in new people to our group. That I've got some of those experiences. A lot of it came from working on this actual surgical floor that I can bring to the table.
I also like something you said. I just want to hit on that point again for people who are listening, is that when you were looking at areas that you wanted to work in, even though it didn't happen to work out, was you looked at the leader and thought they were someone who could lead you well. And I think that's a really strong key point that people miss when they're looking for positions. So I just wanted to re-mention that in case somebody missed it, because that's an important piece.
Yeah, and I can add on to that. The unit that I'm in right now, our leader is exceptional. Perhaps one of the things she does best is put the right people on the team.
Wow.
And we really do have a team. We work well together. We help each other out. And I joke with her that she can't leave until I retire because I want to keep working with somebody like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So talk to me about your educational preparation for going into nursing.
Well, as diverse as farming and nursing are, you would, of course, expect the education to be the same thing. My first degree was in ag business. There was those prereqs that a nurse needs to get into a BSN program. There was some overlap, but there was also some gaps as well. I was busy raising kids and didn't have a lot of free time to jump into a full-blown program. But what I did was I picked up those prerequisites one class at a time over the course of a number of years, those prerequisites.
Good for you. Yeah, that can be I had a similar path myself. I did a similar thing, so I can relate to that. What do you think you brought to the table with nursing, with experiences from your first career or from your agricultural or farming career?
Yeah, as I think about that, I mean, as different as they are, there really isn't a lot of practical hands-on stuff. Probably the thing I would say, though, is just work ethic. Being self-employed, you either do the work or it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
And I brought that same attitude into, and not just my work now, but also into the BSN program and nursing school. And it made it, I won't say easier to be successful, but I knew if I put the work in, I would be successful. Little different experience than 15, 20 years prior when I got the first degree.
Right. Absolutely. And do you have any challenges balancing the two, or do they work pretty well? You can handle the schedule based on.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, not having livestock, I'm certainly busy 6 months out of the year when I have a crop growing. The other 6 months, winter, late fall, early spring, it's easy to make that balance work. A little more challenging during the growing season. Sometimes it seems like the sun only shines when I'm working a shift at the hospital, and it only rains when I'm available to be at the farm. But I've been doing it long enough to know, like I said, 20 plus years of farming with always another job along with it.
Wow.
It always works out.
That's great. I know you've hinted at when you retire. When you retire from nursing, will you also retire from farming, or will it be something you'll continue doing?
I don't know which way it's going to go. There's a lot of options there as I don't see myself just all at once retiring from farming, retiring from nursing. And I'm undecided as to which I would slow down from first. If I decide that I want to slow down from the farming more first, it's a little more physical, although the nursing is, of course, on my feet a lot. I've toyed with the idea of being a travel nurse, somewhere warm and tropical, and that would be a nice sunset for my nursing.
Yes, it would, definitely. There's so many options with nursing. That's the nice part about it.
And that was one of the things that led me into it, is how versatile it really is, both with the schedules you work, but also with the types of nursing that are out there.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunity for sure. Now that you're in nursing, any regrets that you didn't get that seed planted earlier?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It would have been nice to have had the second degree or an advanced degree done earlier in life to capitalize on that as a younger person. But it was an intentional decision on my part because I was busy being a parent, and I don't regret focusing on that and then waiting before I jumped into the BSN program.
So speaking of your children, how did your family react when you said, you know what, I'm going to go into nursing?
Well, let me give you just a little bit of background on what some of my family members do for a living. It's easy to guess that my dad was a farmer, but it gets missed sometimes that my mom was a nurse.
Oh, okay.
And of my three children, one is a nurse that I work with in the same unit currently.
Nice.
Another one started as a nurse and is now a midwife. And my niece works in the same department that I do as well as a nurse.
Oh, nice. That's really cool.
So there's a lot of that in our family.
That's fantastic. So they were all embracing.
Yeah. In fact, the daughter that's the midwife, I think it was she did her NCLEX in December, and I had done it the prior August.
Oh, wow.
And so there was some overlap in our programs.
That's fantastic.
That's kind of a unique situation to be able to bump heads together. Father-daughter.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What surprised you about nursing, if anything, once you got into it?
So the first degree, I wasn't all that focused as a young man, but I'm plodding along and being successful in the program. But when I stepped into that bachelor's degree program for nursing, wow, the breadth and the width of the knowledge that's necessary to have that BSN or that RN on the end of your name really caught me off guard.
Yeah.
And then you think you know it all. You've got those letters at the end of your name, and I started working, and I realized I had a long ways to go.
Yeah.
And so that was another surprise, was how much I learned in school and how much I still needed to learn once I was actually working.
Now, what do you find the most rewarding in both careers?
So I was out on the farm this morning and just looking and we're at a good looking field of corn or beans that I know that a lot of my attention to detail and efforts has yielded that. That's pretty satisfying.
Yeah.
On the nursing side of things, going back to what am I good at? I'm a helper, and when I can lead somebody through some of their dark, difficult times, and maybe talk them down off of the ledge, that's the most rewarding stuff for me.
Yeah.
I sometimes say I'm not a great sciencey nurse, but that mental health bent. When somebody's got a new diagnosis that's rough, or things didn't go the way they had anticipated in surgery, I can work with them and I can walk through that with them, and that I find exceptionally rewarding.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So did you have challenges other than everything that was going on with the farm and your family? Like, that wouldn't be enough, but to have a family through all of that, but challenges with getting your nursing degree?
Fitting it into my specific life was a challenge. If there was not a fast track BS to BSN program available to me, I don't know that I ever would have been able to do it. Right. Even in a 2-year program, that would have been 2 full farming years where I would have had to have stepped away. But the accelerated program that I was in condensed it down such that I was able to miss. I had just planted a crop, and so then I started with a summer semester. That following fall, somebody harvested for me. The following spring, somebody planted for me, and a few months after that, I was done.
Oh, so, wow, okay.
So that was the challenge for me, was to find a way to squeeze that into my unique situation in an efficient way.
Got it. And then you're in nursing, and we end up in a pandemic, which I'm sure you didn't count on. I think I entered nursing just as AIDS was becoming a challenge for everyone. So how did you fare through the pandemic, or how was that experience?
Yeah, and we're still dealing with that. The first thing for us was we had to figure out a safe way to do surgery. And right. So we were kind of shut down for a while, other than some emergent cases, as we developed, what's safe, what can we do, and as we worked towards that, our department was responsible for developing a drive-through COVID testing specifically for surgical patients. And since our case numbers were way down as we figured out what we could and couldn't do, I actually worked in that the drive-through testing some.
Okay.
So that was the one thing, was figuring out how to do it safely. And then the other thing on the other end of this has been getting caught up, and some of my coworkers would say we're not there yet, but it does feel like a lot of those procedures that got put off for a couple of years, we're starting to work our way through that backlog. And so we were slow for a while in the beginning, and now on the tail end of things, we have been exceptionally busy.
Got it. What an interesting journey you've had through all of this. I just think it's fascinating. It's so interesting to have both careers and to balance them and get joy out of both of them on some level. So that's great. Do you have any words of advice for folks who maybe are thinking of advancing their career or changing the direction of their career at this point and they're not sure, or just thoughts in general?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think I touched on it briefly was that once the prerequisites for the BSN program were done, I did do the CNA thing. And so I worked as a patient care tech or a CNA at our hospital for a number of years. In fact, I held that job through nursing school as well.
Yeah.
My point is, find a way to get your feet wet in what you think you might want to do. I was doing the coursework and I'm thinking, well, this seems okay, but I still wasn't all in to committing to doing the work in the nursing program. The CNA thing, finished that, and then started working in that capacity. And I quickly knew that I was going to follow through with it. So the advice I guess I would offer is find a way to get your feet wet in whatever it is you're looking at, so that you can be sure that you're headed down the right thing. Yeah. Understand yourself well enough to know what you're good at. I would have been terrible as a nurse manager. It's not my thing. When I figured out, I'm good at helping, then I knew what path to go with things. Yeah, I guess the other thing I would add to that is it's never too soon and it's never too late to go back to school. I'm a big advocate of additional degrees and advanced degrees. And so that would be my advice.
That's fantastic. Really great. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on this podcast. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
Now, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Second Career Nurses featuring Kevin Lee. We encourage you to check out all of the many courses through elitelearning.com as you move through your own careers. And we thank you for tuning in and listening. I'm Leanna McGuire for Elite Learning by Colibri Healthcare.
This podcast featured content from an accredited CE activity provided by Colibri Healthcare. Visit elitelearning.com/podcasts for accreditation and disclosure statements and instructions on how you may be able to earn CE credits. Take your learning to the next level by subscribing to more podcasts on compelling healthcare topics.